David Farnsworth, and I teach political science here at Mary Washington, and I'd like to welcome you all to the 65th District House of Delegates debate. I want to reiterate a couple of some rules that the candidates have agreed to and the campaigns have agreed to, and we start with silencing the cell phones. We also want to make sure that you do not provide a lot of commentary during the time. We're going to have a brief debate, and we want to have as much time as possible devoted to the comments from the candidates themselves. And so we'll have you applaud after the opening statements, applaud after the closing statements, but during the question and answer period, please keep your comments to yourself. The campaigns have agreed that if there is misconduct on the part of either side, there would be penalties imposed in terms of reduced time for the party that misbehaves. Now I'd like to invite to the stage UMW Student Government Association President Amira Saeed. She offers a welcome.
Hello and welcome. My name is Amira Saeed. I'm the Student Government Association President. These annual debates are deeply important for UMW to promote civic engagement, and it gives students front row seats to an integral part in our political process. I wanted to come up here and thank everyone who made this event possible, and I hope you enjoy the debate. Thank you.
In a moment, Susan Spears, the president of the Fredericksburg Area Chamber of Commerce, will introduce the candidates. But first, let's have a warm round of applause for the people willing to serve. I'll invite the candidates to the stage.
You just lost 30 seconds. It's a joke. It's a joke. Good evening and welcome. I'm Susan Spears, President and CEO of the Fredericksburg Regional Chamber of Commerce. We are proud to partner tonight with the University of Mary Washington Student Government Association and the Fredericksburg Area League of Women's Voters to host tonight's event. UMW professor, who you just saw, of political science, Dr. Stephen Farnsworth, will serve as tonight's moderator. He will join fellow UMW professor of political science, Rosalind Cooperman, who chairs the department, and WFVA radio news director, and a legend, Ted Schubel, in asking questions of the candidates. Virginia's House of Delegates' 65th District includes the city of Fredericksburg and parts of Stafford and Spotsylvania counties, and we commend the candidates before us for their willingness to serve in the Commonwealth. We look forward to hearing both of your remarks. With no further ado, I will now introduce our candidates for Virginia's 65th House of Delegates, beginning with Joshua Cole, who was elected to the Virginia House of Delegates 28th District in 2019, serving 2 years as the youngest person and the first Black elected from the Fredericksburg region to the General Assembly. In 2023, he won the race for Virginia's 65th District, and Cole has focused on issues such as, but not limited to, health care, minimum wage, transportation, and voting rights. Prior to his political career, he worked for Liberty University and Richmond City Public Schools. He is a pastor and former president of the Stafford County NAACP, a father of two, and he lives with his wife in the Falmouth area of Stafford. Also with us tonight is Sean Steinway, who served 4 years, starting at the age of 18. Another 30 seconds? No, okay. All right, served 4 years in the Marine Corps, followed by service working undercover with the Fairfax County Police Department. Next, he spent 20 years with the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, in Central and South America and in Guatemala. He served as lead instructor for the DEA's sensitive investigative units at Quantico, training thousands in that role. He is co-owner of Martina's Cantina food truck, which services Fredericksburg, Stafford, and Spotsylvania. He is the founder of Peacemakers USA, which donates a portion of profits to local veteran charities. He volunteers as a firearm safety instructor, and he has 5 children and lives with his wife in the White Oak area of Stafford. I will now turn the program back over to Dr. Farnsworth. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Just a quick outline of how things are going to go tonight. The opening statements, which will be for 2 minutes each. We did a drawing of lots backstage, and Delegate Cole will give the first 2-minute presentation. Delegate Cole also answered the first question. The closing statements are in reverse order. The way that this will work for once we get beyond the opening statements, the questions will be asked in alternative from one candidate answering first the first time and then the other candidate answering first the next time. There'll be an even number of questions where candidates answer first. The first person to get the question has a 2-minute response, and then the other candidate will have 1 minute to respond. There will be 30 seconds for a rebuttal if necessary by the candidate who spoke first, and then we'll move on to the next question. The timekeepers will provide warning signs for the candidates, and if we can, we'll show the candidates how this is going to work. There's a green card that says 30 seconds left that we will lift. You can see that. Then the yellow light warning of 15 seconds, and then when you see the red light, your time is up. Now you can finish the sentence. I don't think you need to stop in mid-sentence, but do please respect the light so we get to as many questions as we can tonight. So now we're ready to start with the opening statements. And by lots, candidate Cole goes first, 2 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. All right, I'll try that again. I'm a preacher. I like when y'all talk back to me. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. That sounds a whole lot better. My name is Joshua Cole, and I am blessed to represent the 65th House District in my second term in the Virginia's Historical General Assembly. Over the past couple of months, we have seen how our communities and our nation have been divided. But we have to make sure that we have legislators and leaders in our community who is going to bring us all together and make sure that we can fight for lottie-dottie and everybody. We have seen how many of our neighbors have lost their jobs. We have seen in many communities where people are at risk of losing their health care. We've even seen in rural and Southside Virginia where hospitals have already closed up and shuttered. And even right here, down the street, our VA clinic, is not at full capacity at which it should be. And so we have now the opportunity to make sure that come November the 4th, in just shy of 33 days, that we're sending the right leaders down to Richmond who are going to carry our ideals, our values, and make sure that we have a voice down in Richmond to make sure that we are represented well, and the right pieces of legislation are being passed. And so tonight, you'll hear spirited debate. Tonight, you will experience what it means to be American, to hear us disagree, but peacefully disagree and soundfully disagree for why one of us should be able to represent you in the 65th District. I hope by the time we finish tonight, I will prove in my point why I'm the best choice to continue to serve the Fredericksburg region as the delegate for the 65th District. So I'm looking forward to tonight. I'm excited to be here, and I'm hoping to be enlightened and encouraged as we continue to fight forward. Thank you so much.
2 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sean Steinway. First of all, I would like to thank God for giving me the opportunity of being here in front of you guys tonight. I would also like to thank the staff at Mary Washington University for putting this debate together. I want to thank each and every one of you who came out tonight and showed your support. I also want to thank Delegate Cole for agreeing to have a civil debate tonight. I'm running for the 65th District in the House of Delegates to fight for all Virginians. How do you know that I'm going to do that? Because I've been doing it. Through my service in the United States Marine Corps, as a police officer in Fairfax County, 20 years in DEA, and now currently as a deputy sheriff in Stafford County. I am not a politician. I am not. I am a public servant. And for the next hour, you will hear why I want to represent you in the 65th District. There are three key issues that are important to me and to the constituents in our district: our economy, our education, and our public safety. For our economy, less regulation, lower taxes. For our education, let's take politics out of the classroom and focus on what's more important, which is our children's education. Let's focus on teaching them their ABCs and not their DEIs. As for public safety, this is my bread and butter, and I will carry it on. I don't know if you have noticed, but I am Hispanic, so I would like to welcome our Hispanic viewers and our members here. Mi nombre es Sean Steinway y me estoy postulando como delegado para el Distrito 65. Quiero dar la bienvenida y las gracias por estar acá. Muchas gracias. I'm not an expert in policy, but I am an expert in life. Let's make our 65th safer and prosperous. Thank you very much.
The first question goes to candidate Cole from TED.
The constitutional amendment on reproductive rights, what is your stand on it as it comes up for a second vote in the next session?
Thank you for the question. The constitutional amendment, as there are 3 constitutional amendments that will be before the General Assembly in January, specifically reproductive freedom, I have led every time I've run to making sure that we can protect access to reproductive freedom and making sure that women have their own reproductive choice. And so I look forward to making sure that we can vote to pass that constitutional amendment so that the people, the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia, will have their own choice at the ballot box during the midterm elections come next year. It should be up to the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia if they want to enshrine that in the Constitution. Thank you.
1 minute.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I would like to say that I am pro-life. I have 5 beautiful kids, and I couldn't even fathom to know what it's to have an unwanted pregnancy. As a matter of fact, I have been through that before, not as a female, and I sympathize with all the females that have been through that tragic moment. But I was put in that situation when I was 19 years old. I was just graduated out of the Marine Corps boot camp, and I received a call saying that my girlfriend was pregnant. I had to make a decision, and the toughest decision that I had to make. I was not ready for it. But today I look at the eyes of my son, and I am blessed that I made the right decision. I am happy to have my kids. Thank you very much.
Next question goes first to candidate Steinway.
Good evening. If elected, what is the first bill that you would introduce in the Virginia General Assembly?
Thank you for the question. Like I said, I'm not an expert in policy, but what I do say and what I want to tell you is that I will put Virginians first. I will put our constituents first, and I will listen to every single one of you, no matter what your background is, no matter what your party is. I want to make sure that all Virginians have a voice in Richmond. I don't have a first bill that I want to introduce, but I will listen to my constituents to see what is important to them. That is what's most important to me. Thank you.
1 minute.
As we've been knocking on doors and having conversation with friends, family members, and people in the community of Fredericksburg, we already know that access to affordable housing is a major problem. This past session, I was honored to carry a first-time homebuyers grant, which would have allowed first-time homebuyers to access $10,000 towards their first home. That bill passed the General Assembly, was unfortunately vetoed by our governor, and so I'm looking forward to returning next session to introduce that piece of legislation again under a new governor and passing it so that people in the Commonwealth of Virginia will be able to take access to that.
I ask people to refrain from the applause during these questions so we have more time for the responses from the candidates. One of the things that I'm doing in this debate is asking questions that were provided by the audience. Some of you filled out some index cards ahead of time. And one of those questions dealt with the issue of energy. New energy-intensive customers are coming online in Virginia at the same time that some of the existing generation assets are nearing the end of their useful life. What can you do, what can the legislature do to protect electric reliability and affordability? And this question goes first to candidate Cole.
Thank you so much for the question. As we've seen over the past couple of years, the ability to build data centers in the community has been popping up all over Stafford County, Fredericksburg, even Spotsylvania County. And what that does is increase the rates and the usage of electricity and energy. We have to make sure that on the state level, we are absolutely protecting ratepayers, which requires us to hold public utility companies responsible. We have these companies like Dominion Energy and Appalachian Power who are running amok in the Commonwealth of Virginia by charging us outrageous prices, and they're not being held accountable. So first and foremost, we need to make sure that these public utility companies are held accountable and that we're able to protect ratepayers, and that's the first thing we need to do because that's our pockets they're coming after.
1 minute.
Thank you. Serving all Virginians means keeping energy affordable for families and businesses to thrive. Power bills keep rising while local production declines. My opponent prefers importing energy from other states, raising costs, always looking for the highest bidder to fund his campaign. I will fight to produce energy locally, including nuclear and lower power bills for everyone. Thank you.
We'll turn now, I'm sorry, I want to get to the next question. Ted asked the next question, this of candidate Steinway.
Let's talk transportation. What are some specific ideas that you would like to pursue in Richmond?
Thank you very much for the question. Again, serving all Virginians means building infrastructure that works so people can get to work, school, and community safely. Virginians shouldn't be sitting in traffic, missing quality time with their loved ones. In Fredericksburg, rapid growth has outpaced road development. My opponent would rather spend out politically flashy projects than practical solutions. Instead of widening the roads, he wants to rename the roads. I will prioritize real infrastructure improvements and put money where it needs to be, not politics. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As it relates to infrastructure, I think I stood just a couple buildings ago, about 5 years ago in 2017, and the question was posed, what was the greatest issue facing the Fredericksburg region? And I mentioned growth was a major issue. And with that, we have to make sure that we have proper urban planning to make sure we can deal with the transportation that we're dealing and the issue that we're having, which also requires multimodal transportation. If that means a particular third river crossing across the Rappahannock River to allow people to get around town, we should do that in consultation with the people who live in those communities. If it means making sure that VRE travels up and down on morning and evening, and also making sure that you can take the train to DC on the weekends as well, multimodal transportation. And I've also stood here time after time advocating for a regional transportation authority, which we have to require the localities to take part in. So in order to get that passed, we have to have the buy-in from the localities, but it's still something that I'm advocating for, which will require us to keep our tax money here in the region so that we can go to the smart scale with costs in our hands, with money in our hands, to say that we need these projects done. And so I'm willing to make sure that we can work with whatever way we can to make sure that people can crisscross throughout the Fredericksburg region as much as possible.
Next question from Roslyn goes first to candidate Cole.
We are presently experiencing a shutdown of the federal government. What support can or should Virginia provide to support federal workers, military service personnel, and those in our community who own businesses who rely on these very groups of people to support their businesses?
As we've seen starting yesterday, the closure of the federal government, which is due to a failure in leadership in Washington, D.C., and a direct quote from the president who said, whenever a government shuts down, it is the job of the president to make sure that it's opened back up. This is a quote from the president himself. And as we're looking at that, it now is the responsibility of the state government to step up when the federal government is failing. That requires us, the legislation that we've already passed this past session, to make sure that if people are at risk of losing their homes because they cannot pay their mortgages, that we've stepped up as a state government to say you cannot force people out of their homes during a shutdown. We have the ability to serve other different services, whether it even includes, again, legislation that we have passed this past session to increase the cost of daily, weekly benefits for unemployment for people who have lost their jobs as well. And so there are many different things that we can do as a state legislature to make sure that, as I say all the time, lottie-dottie and everybody is protected, whether that's food, whether that's access to affordability for your bills. We absolutely have to do that. And it starts today. It starts yesterday to make sure that these people are protected. And we have to make sure that they feel like if the federal government is failing, that their state government is stepping up and delivering on the issues where the federal government is failing.
Thank you. I too was a victim of losing my job during the federal government. And I think what we need to do is provide working families and business owners here in Virginia with more opportunity. We need to create more jobs in our district. We need to create more jobs in Virginia to help out our people. My opponent has done completely the opposite thing. He raised taxes against constituents' wishes and increased bureaucratic hurdles for them. We need to work on making our district, our Virginia, more affordable and with better opportunities for everybody. Thank you.
This next question goes first to candidate Steinway, and it's an audience question. What measures do you support to improve the academic performance of public school students statewide, given the declines that continue to affect students following the years of COVID?
Thank you very much. Education is one of my top priorities. Serving all Virginians means putting education first. As a father of 5, I know how deeply parents care about their children's learning. Parents have been pushed out of the conversation here in our schools. Classrooms have become more political than educational. Too many students are falling behind. We need to restore parental input in the classroom, create programs that meet students where they are. My opponent has opposed parental involvement and even called for removing safety officers from our schools, making schools less safe. Serving all Virginians means empowering parents and keeping children safe while they learn. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The question relates to what are we doing for policy procedures to increase the performance of our students in our schools. We absolutely have to make sure that our students are being taught to retain information. The way our students are currently taught now, they're being taught to test. They pass a test, they move on, they take another test. We have to ensure that we are educating our students and teaching them to make sure they're retaining information so that they can be productive citizens once they leave and enter into the workforce. We also have to make sure that our students feel protected in the school environment as well. I never called for school resource officers to be removed out of school, and so I don't know where that lie came from, but we have to make sure that our students feel protected in school, and this is why I support making sure that families, parents, and educators are building a bridge to support one another. You cannot have education without educators, and you cannot have education without families and parents. And so there has to be a bridge that's built back to pulling this situation back together, and we do not, I agree, we do not need to politicize our schools. We need to make sure that families and educators are brought back together at the table for the betterment of our students.
Ted goes first, asking a question of candidate Cole.
Delegate Cole, you mentioned affordable housing a second ago. What does affordable housing mean to you? And talk about legislation you would support.
Thank you. for those of us who live in the Fredericksburg region, we don't have to talk about how affordable housing is a problem. And when I mention affordable housing, I'm not just talking about public housing, but we're talking about accessibility to affordability for those people who live in the city of Fredericksburg, who work in the city of Fredericksburg. I've been knocking on doors and hearing from families who are saying, as they go to move into a new place, they have to pay first month rent and a security deposit. We're all used to doing that. But now landlords are requiring you to pay that last month rent and requiring you, before you even qualify, to make 3 times the rent in order to get into a home. I introduced a piece of legislation this year that would have stopped that in order to say if people can pay the first month rent, pay the security deposit, and you can check their credit and they have a good credit score, let them get into a house. We have also seen how the Supreme Court has attacked homelessness, where it is now illegal for you to even sleep in your car. And so we've introduced legislation that now the Housing Commission is taking it up as a study to figure out what we can do to help people get access to affordable housing and make sure if they're on the streets, how we can find out solutions and proper ways to get them into housing as well. Thank you.
1 minute.
Thank you. I think to create affordable housing, we need to lower taxes. I am a homeowner. It is so hard for people or families now in Virginia to afford a house. We need to create more programs that will benefit our families in order to be able to get programs that will help them purchase houses. Our taxes are way too high. Our property taxes are extremely out of control. We need to work on lowering those taxes and help out our constituents. Thank you.
Rosalind, the question goes first to candidate Steinway.
In this area, it's not uncommon for people seeking to establish a relationship with their primary care doctor to wait multiple months and close to a year before they get in to see a physician for items like a physical. What would you do as a state delegate, to address the shortage of healthcare providers in this area?
Thank you. As a veteran, I've been victim of that. I have been looking for healthcare providers in our area. I understand that people need healthcare, and we need to fight to help them find affordable healthcare out there. Like I said, as a veteran, I think that all this healthcare, it is politicized. I think we're not looking to helping our people. We're just looking at the highest bidder for our healthcare, and I think that's wrong. I think we need to put our Virginian people first and seek the needs that they have to achieve a affordable healthcare. Thank you.
The past year, I was honored to serve on a special select committee on rural health care, which required us to travel throughout the state and study and see how rural health care is on the decline and what we as legislators can do to help that issue. And one of the things that baffled me was to find out that the Fredericksburg region is considered a nursing and doctor desert. Even though some of us may have access to doctors, there are so many people, as we just heard in the question, who spend months waiting to even get into a doctor's office. One of the things that I'm proud to do is the money that we've put towards the University of Mary Washington in starting a nursing program. But we are not going to stop there. There have been discussions happening right now between myself and other legislators about creating the first nursing medical school in Northern Virginia, right here at the University of Mary Washington and the and the hospital at Mary Washington. And so we want to make sure that when we get back to next session, we are able to fund that and give the resources necessary to make sure that we can grow our doctors and build our doctors and nurses right here in the region and send them to help us out when we need it the most.
This question goes first to candidate Cole. It's an audience question. What is your position on right to work for Virginia?
Thank you. I make no qualms about it. I absolutely believe we need to repeal right to work in the Commonwealth of Virginia, without a doubt. And I stand here on the shoulders of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who stated it is a racist initiative and that it is not hurting workers, it is not helping workers, it is hurting workers. And so as long as I have breath in my body to fight in this General Assembly, I'm going to keep fighting to make sure we repeal right to work in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
1 minute. A reminder, please be on your best behavior or something approaching it.
I didn't say anything. Right to work. Right to work for me is very important. I think every Virginian deserves the right. I don't agree with Delegate Cole. I think we need to look for every Virginian to have the opportunity to work. I don't think that what he's saying and using race is completely out of hand, but I think right to work is a big benefit for all Virginians. Thank you.
This question goes first to candidate Steinway, and it's from Ted. Oh, you want to?
Yes.
There's a 30-second rebuttal option. 30 seconds, go ahead.
Absolutely. I think people are misconstruing the fact that right to work, repealing right to work doesn't mean you get to work. Right to work means you're working for less right now. It's the ability to allow jobs and people who work the ability to build unions and work and defend for themselves. And so that's what we're talking about, the ability to right to work and make sure that you're able to build and unionize if you so choose.
The next question goes to candidate Steinway, and that's from Ted.
Local school districts routinely are asking the General Assembly for more funding. Would you commit to pushing the next governor and General Assembly to increase local school funding?
School funding is very important. Like I said earlier, our children's education is one of my top priorities. I think it's very important to be able to fund our children's dreams, not only for college, but also to push out technical schools, like welding, like mechanics. We are missing a lot of those things nowadays. I think college is very important, and the funding should be there for our students to seek a higher education. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the question was specifically, what are we doing to increase funding for our local school divisions? Those of us who have been serving in the General Assembly for the past 2 years have passed a piece of legislation that would have allowed school divisions, especially as it relates to school construction, to pass a resolution on their local levels to a 1% sales tax to increase to make sure that they can build new buildings. We know in Stafford County, we are already behind in our building for schools. And so we have passed that legislation, and our governor has vetoed it. We have a gentleman over here on the stage who touts the celebration of having the endorsement from the veto blocking governor who would have increased funding for our schools if we were allowed to pass it. We need a new governor so that we can make sure that piece of legislation really does pass.
We're going to move to question to Delegate Cole first from Roslyn.
What is your position on additional data centers here in the district?
Thank you. I mentioned data centers just a couple minutes ago. First and foremost, let me at least state the fact that approval for data centers is a local issue that belongs at the behest of the Board of Supervisors and the City Council in this region, right? But I think my job as a state legislator is to make sure that ratepayers are protected, that our water is protected, and that our land and energy is protected. Once we protect those at the state level, then the localities should be able to be empowered to make that decision in consultation with the people who put them in those seats by having community discussions and making sure they understand the importance of why this should happen or why it shouldn't happen. And the people who are on the local level, I'm looking at you, Keisha, should make sure that they listen to the people who are supporting them and make the right decision.
1 minute, Senator Fireman.
Serving all Virginians means welcoming business investments. There are 2 key points for data centers. One, I understand that they will bring tax revenue and create jobs. But we have to have local oversight to protect our citizens. I believe data centers are important, but they need to be conducive to the area. What that means is we got to plan, we got to make sure that we're not affecting our constituents, our citizens, where these data centers are being placed. I will put Virginia first and make sure that the data centers do not drive up the cost of electricity. We should be looked on at a case-by-case basis to help our constituents. My opponent raises energy costs and taxes. I will fight to keep costs low and bring business back to Virginia. Thank you.
There are 3, this question goes first to candidate Steinway. There are 3 amendments to the Virginia Constitution that are currently before the legislature. We've already discussed one, the constitutional right to abortion question. There are 2 others. One is to reverse the ban on same-sex marriage, and the other to restore voting rights to convicted felons after completion of their incarceration. How do you plan to vote on these other 2 constitutional amendments, being considered by the legislature right now.
Thank you. Serving all Virginians means putting public safety first and fighting crime. My opponent has advocated for defunding the police, and I'm going to tell you this, and for the early release of criminals. With the early release, there's 3 numbers that I need you to focus on. 50%, 7,000, and 53. 50% of the criminals that were released under his directive have been rearrested. 7,000 of them committing crimes. And out of those 7,000, 53 have committed murders. 53 murders. If I can do one thing during this time, is to stop this guy from continuing with the release of early criminals. I am for public safety. Let's make our district safe and prosperous. Thank you.
Candidate Cole, 1 minute.
Well, since the question wasn't answered over here, let me take the priority to answer the question. Let me first set the stage and say I'm the only one on this stage who is endorsed by a current sitting sheriff. I am the only one on this stage who is endorsed by the Police Benevolent Assistance Fund. And so I'm the one that is fighting for public safety. But regardless, the question was, how will we support the other remaining constitutional amendments? Repealing the marriage equality, we have to make sure that that is done. Whatever's happening in the Supreme Court, we don't know what's going to happen. Again, letting the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia make that decision for themselves at the midterm next year is the same answer I have for all 3 constitutional amendments. Passing it out of the General Assembly in January so that you all have a say next November whether you want to have those enshrined in the Constitution.
This question from Ted goes first to candidate Cole.
What do you tell everyone who sits on Route 3 or 610 or any area road and someone who's sitting in traffic every day? What can be done to help them?
I used to be a slugger. When I worked in Northern Virginia, my mother is a commuter. Many family members of mine are a commuter. And even though I don't still commute up the road, I still sit on Route 3 in traffic. I don't even represent 610 anymore, but I still sit on 610 in traffic. I sit on Route 1 trying to get across the Falmouth Bridge. And so we all feel the pain of the transportation nightmare, which is the Northern Virginia area, right? And so we have to make sure that we're doing, as I mentioned earlier, having access to multimodal ways of transportation, whether it's rail, whether it's making sure that people continue to ride Fred for free, FXB Go for free. That was money that we put in the budget. So we made that free. We also want to make sure that people have ways to get around town. And so I mentioned earlier, a 3rd river crossing, if at all possible. But we want to make sure that our tax money is being brought back to this region absolutely through a regional transportation authority. And I'll continue to keep fighting for that.
1 minute.
Transportation is important. Like I said earlier, we need to work on making it serviceable for our constituents to have decent modes of transportation and the infrastructure that we need for them to achieve it. I did too, myself, commute back north of Virginia and back here. And we need to work on serving all Virginians by creating functional roads and infrastructure. My opponent wastes resources on political projects, but I will prioritize for solutions that will help our constituents in our 65th district. Thank you.
The next question from Rosalind goes first to candidate Steinway.
In June of 2025, a Minnesota Democratic state representative and her husband were murdered. In September of 2025, this just past month, a conservative activist was murdered. What can you do, if elected, to bring down the temperature in the room as a state legislature in dealing with folks across the aisle?
Thank you. Public safety, that goes for all, and that means serving all Virginians. Putting public safety first and fighting crime. As a law enforcement officer, I see firsthand how crime impacts our communities and how lack of resources hampers our ability to protect people. This doesn't mean overpenalizing everyday citizens, but we must crack down on violent crime, no matter who it is, and keep dangerous criminals off the streets. My opponent has advocated for defunding the police. How is that going to help us? We have to keep freeing violent criminals who have returned to our neighborhoods, causing all this suffering. I will serve all Virginians in the House of Delegates by ensuring our communities are safe and protected, exactly what I've been doing as a deputy sheriff. Thank you.
Candidate Cole, 1 minute.
Thank you. I think it's absolutely horrific and sad, the state that we are in America as it relates to political violence. Whether it is the death of Charlie Kirk or Speaker Hortman, we do not condone, and we are not okay with any political violence. We absolutely have to make sure that when we return back to Richmond, that the gun lobby does not have a place in the Commonwealth of Virginia, to make sure that these senseless murders that are happening in Fredericksburg, just this year alone, we have seen young kids shot down. I know you've seen the TikTok video. I saw the TikTok video of 16-year-olds running across the street with AR-15s. We have to make sure that we are passing legislation in honor of Charlie Kirk and in honor of Melissa Hortman to make sure that we're doing sound judgment on common sense gun reform. We passed a piece of legislation this year that just simply said school boards would have 2 times a year to send notices to parents to lock up dangerous guns and keep dangerous prescriptions out of hands of your kids. It passed in a bipartisan support and was vetoed by this governor. We need to make sure common sense legislation like that is passed in their memory and their honor.
This question goes first to candidate Cole. This is an audience question. New laws passed this year in Washington will reduce federal support for the Affordable Care Act and tighten eligibility rules for Medicaid. This will make health care more expensive and less available for many Virginians. What, if anything, should the state do in response to those federal cuts in support for health insurance?
Absolutely. There are well over 300,000 citizens in the Commonwealth of Virginia who are poised to lose their health insurance. Now, I know we heard that our Lieutenant Governor said that no one's going to lose their insurance, but on record, on data, 300,000 plus people in the Commonwealth of Virginia are poised to lose their health insurance. These are working class citizens. These are folks with disabilities. These are folks with mental incapacitations and physical handicaps who are going to lose their insurance because they cannot work. There's also the ability to make sure that we are doing everything we can in our budget to make sure whatever happens on the federal level, that no one is impacted in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We are trying our hardest to figure out what we're going to do with our budget right now as a member of the Emergency Committee Emergency Committee on the Federal Government. And so we are working hard now to figure out when we get to January, what are we going to do as a state legislature to ensure no one in the Commonwealth of Virginia goes without health care moving forward.
1 minute.
Thank you. Healthcare is very important. We have a lot of people in our district that require healthcare. I understand that we need to make healthcare more affordable for our people to ensure that everybody has the ability to maintain their healthcare. I don't think, sorry, let me get back to that. I believe we need to work as a community and see on the deep side what is preventing for people to get what they need for healthcare. I think that it's been politicized as well, and we need to work on a case-by-case basis to make sure that the people that truly need the healthcare get it, but not the people that want to abuse it just because it's a handout. Thank you.
Candidate Steinway has the next question coming from Ted.
Do you support any changes in Virginia gun laws? Why or why not?
This goes to candidate Steinway first.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on the gun laws, the changes?
Any changes you would like to, you would support, or why not?
I don't think there should be any changes on the gun laws. I am all for what we have right now. I think for what it needs to be is actually do a background on somebody, on the people that are purchasing these guns, but no changes to our gun laws. Our gun laws, that's our God-given right. Thank you.
Candidate Cole?
About 5 years ago, there were protests at the local level calling for Second Amendment sanctuary cities to prevent us from passing pieces of legislation. One of the prime pieces of legislation that we passed was something called red flag laws, which would allow people who knew that someone posed a threat to themselves or their family members, they could just simply report it to law enforcement and have them come check out the situation. We passed that piece of legislation with much to the chagrin of people in various different areas, but the amazing thing about it is that piece of legislation is being carried out the most in red areas to make sure that people are actually protected. So when we talk about making sure that we can pass legislation that changes the way we do the ability to own guns or different things like that, we want to make sure that people are protected. That's the only type of legislation I'll support when changing access to guns, is what are we doing to make sure that our kids in our streets are protected, that our schools are protected, that spouses are protected. Those are the only type of pieces of legislation that I'll support.
We're going to move to the next question. This is Rosalind, first to candidate Cole. But before I do that, I want to remind everybody that people can't hear if you're acting up. So please behave as a civil member of our community.
This may seem like an obvious question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who are you voting for governor, and why?
That is a very obvious question. I will be supporting Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger without question and without reservation come November the 4th when I go to vote in person. I think it's amazing as we see the hellacious behavior happening in Washington, D.C. We absolutely need a governor on the state level with the experience of dealing with Washington, D.C.'s fanatics and issues and making sure they can partner up with the experience of working in Richmond, here I am, to make sure that we can support that and building a bridge to pass legislation, to bring jobs to the Commonwealth of Virginia, to make sure that we have sound decisions that are made that are going to impact everyone in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so that's why I'm voting for Abigail Spanberger. She has the experience needed, and I'm looking forward to making sure that she is Her Excellency when we get to January.
Candidate Stein?
I am not voting for Spanberger. I will be voting for Winsome Earl Sears. She is a leader. She has the life experience. She has been serving in our county or in our state as our lieutenant governor and has done a great job. And I think that once elected as our governor, she will continue to carry on what Governor Youngkin has been doing in the past 4 years. Thank you very much.
The question goes first to candidate Steinway. It's another audience question. What are your views on the integrity of Virginia elections, and what measures, if any, do you think Virginia needs to adopt to improve and secure elections and voting in the Commonwealth?
Virginia integrity, voting integrity has been an issue. And the issue starts with people like Delegate Cole when he wants to give driver's license to illegal immigrants that will give them the chance to vote legally in our state. I think we need to maintain our integrity as our citizens so that we can control who votes and who doesn't vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I currently sit as a member of the Privileges and Elections Committee in the House of Delegates, and every year, after each election, we are honored to have a report given to us by the Republican administration that runs the state that tells us how secure our elections are. And for the past 4 years, the Republicans have run the state, and they have showed us and told us our elections are secure and safe in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We don't have electronic voting machines in Virginia. That's not a concern here. All the ballots are done by paper. They are counted, and we make sure that we have sound elections in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And yes, I'm giving the Youngkin administration their props tonight, that they have protected our elections while we, as the Democrats, have made sure excellent legislation has been passed to allow people accessibility to the ballot. You also can't vote in elections if you're not a U.S. citizen, so I don't know where that's coming from, because that's not even possible.
The next question from Ted goes first to candidate Cole.
Delegate Cole, your thoughts on the minimum wage?
Thank you. In 2020, when I first made it to the General Assembly, we voted to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We did it incrementally. When the Youngkin administration came in, they blocked that. We again passed legislation this year to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which, mind you, is still too low for some folks living in Fredericksburg. Don't even talk about the folks that live in Northern Virginia. But in Fredericksburg, and yet that piece of legislation was still vetoed. There are people who are married teachers, a husband who's a teacher, a wife who's a teacher, and they are still just barely making it by on their salary. There are people who cannot now afford to live in the Commonwealth of Virginia or even in the Fredericksburg area without having multiple streams of income in their home, whether that's 2 roommates. Or now we're even seeing the possibility of, because life is so tough, parents are staying at home with their kids, when it used to be the kids used to live in their parents' basement. And so we now have to make sure that we're doing everything we can to bring affordable jobs, well-paying jobs to the area, and making sure that we can raise the minimum wage to make sure that people, fresh families just starting out, can afford to live where they want to work. And we have to make sure that we're doing that. And again, like I said, I look forward to doing that next session with a better governor.
1 minute.
Thank you. Minimum wage is important, but I think we can counteract it also by lowering our taxes. Just like he said, there's a lot of hardworking families that have to work 2 to 3 jobs to maintain or to sustain. But that is because we were being overtaxed, taxed that they increase. We need to work on lowering taxes so that our families can afford to live in our district without having to worry about the minimum wage. We need to create better businesses in our district. We need to create better business in Virginia. We need to bring business to Virginia instead of pushing them away with higher taxes. Thank you.
Next question. I'm sorry.
Can I just
30-second rebuttal?
Yes, raise a concern that when we talk about lowering taxes, it's all good and well. We certainly want to make sure that we're not overextending folks. But my opponent keeps talking about services. How are those services paid for? By the money we as citizens put into our government.
We'll now turn this question from Roslyn to candidate Steinway first.
Many school districts are looking at limiting social media access to children, particularly during the school year. What is your position on whether or not legislation should be passed to restrict access to social media for minors?
I think social media could be good and it could be bad at the same time, but I think for our minors, I think there needs to be some restriction in what they see in our social media. I think social media can poison people's minds and it could help people as well. But I do agree that we need to have some restriction for minors with social media. I think we need to control that. Thank you.
This past General Assembly, we passed 2 measures relating to this issue. The City of Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania County, and Stafford County Public Schools already passed ordinances that said from bell to bell, no cell phones in the schools. I fully support that. We also passed legislation this year as a General Assembly saying that children under the age of 18 should be limited to the amount of social media access they have on general. And so yes, absolutely we have to make sure they are have limits to social media, but we also want to make sure that people and families are spending more time together with that extra time. If you talk to Superintendent Catlett at the Fredericksburg City Public Schools, she's now saying when you go to lunch, the cafeteria is loud again because people are communicating more. We want to make sure that if you're getting rid of social media access to these minors, that the parents and families are building a relationship again and they're coming together better as well.
In a moment, we will hear 2-minute closing statements from each of the candidates. Candidate Steinway will give the first 2-minute closing statement. But before I do that, I want to thank the many people who made this evening possible. This is an important community service, and I want to thank all of you for coming and hearing from these candidates. What I also want to do, above all, is thank the candidates themselves for being willing to serve. I think it's important to note that this is a very difficult time to be in public life, and those people who are willing to devote the time, the energy to reach out to their communities and run for office deserve a round of applause from all of us. As I mentioned before, you'll be able to applaud after the closing statements of the candidates, so our prohibition is now lifted. I want to thank the many students of the Student Government Association and the Mary Washington students who participated in this event, especially Amir Saeed, president of SGA, Allie Davis, the vice president of SGA, who served as our timekeepers tonight, keeping things operating very smoothly. I also want to thank Theodore Blackwell, Alana Muller, and Ben Dickinson for their help in collecting the audience questions. There are many people at the University of Mary Washington on the staff who have been involved in making this go so smoothly. Susan Worrell, Doug Noble, Lisa Marvashti, Amy Jesse, Mark Simpkins, and of course, the University of Mary Washington Police Chief Michael Hall and his team. Thanks to all of them for making this work smoothly. I also want to thank my fellow panelists, Ted Schubel and Dr. Rosalind Cooperman, who offered up the questions for us tonight. And so with that, I will turn it to the closing statements. Candidate Steinway goes first.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity, each and every one of you. As I said in my opening statement, I am not an expert in policy. I'm not an eloquent speaker like Delegate Cole, but I do speak from the heart. And what I'm trying to do is I want to fight for all to make our district better. I'm not a politician. I don't know policies. I don't know any of that stuff. But I am learning. What I do know is how to work hard for the people that matter, and that is all of you. And I promise you that I will give all of me to helping all of you in whatever your needs are and to make our district safer and more prosperous. I give you that as my word. Thank you.
Well, good evening again, and thank you for your time. I want to thank all the people who had a part in tonight and organizing. I know organizing an event like this can be hard, so we thank you for your time. I want to thank my family for being here tonight. I want to thank my team and everyone in the audience who have maybe even volunteered for us. I thank you for your time. Tonight, the stakes couldn't be higher, as I mentioned earlier, from our neighbors losing their jobs. As I'm knocking on doors, I have never seen more homes for sale, for rent, and for lease than I've ever seen while knocking doors before. We have seen people who are at risk of losing their health care. And now, more than ever, we need visionary leaders who will head down to Richmond to make sure we pass legislation that protects Lottie Dottie and everybody. We have to make sure that we're sending the right people to Richmond who will make sure they're protecting all of our rights and making sure that we all have accessibility to live for life, pursuit, and happiness. We also have to make sure that we're sending qualified leaders who are going to do the right work. Again, as I stated tonight, there was a lot of lies that were thrown around. I'm the only one on the stage that's endorsed by a sitting sheriff. I'm the only one on the stage that's endorsed by the police association. And so we have to make sure that sound leaders are going down to Richmond to fight for us. And so that's why I'm excited and honored that if you like me enough, y'all send me back to Richmond for a third term. I look forward to it. I look forward to getting to work hard again, like I've always been doing. And I'm excited to be representing you all in the Virginia General Assembly. Thank you so much. God bless you. Let's fight and win.
Thank y'all and have a pleasant evening.